Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. As you can tell, this is not my normal background. As I mentioned last week, I am in Tampa, Florida this week. Sanjay and I came down last Tuesday and we're a part of the RISE conference and had a great conference, very beneficial. Matter of fact, I was thinking how good it would be maybe if some of us could pool our dollars together next year and several of us come down. I think it would be a good investment of our time. But anyway, that's the story for another day. But Sanjay and I, the last couple of days, we've taken some time just to enjoy the warm climate and the beautiful sights around here. And we'll be flying out in the morning, getting back to Bismarck. Looking forward to getting back. But it's been a good few days, and it's been good to refresh our minds and also rest our bodies a little. But I'd almost thought about not doing a Saturday briefing. I started a series last week on transitioning well in our life and in our ministry, and I'll pick back up on that next week. But I thought I would give you a shout out. There's important things going on, and I want to make you aware of those, and then just a few observations about this week, and I think they'll be helpful. So let's just jump into them. I've entitled today's little talk with you, it's kind of a long title. I've entitled it this way: Memories of Paul L. Walker. Large cities are apples and small towns are oranges, and the best enchilada I've ever eaten. How you like that for a title? That's like one of the titles of those books I used to write, 500 years ago. But there's really three things there that I want to share with you. And the first one is just some memories of Paul L. Walker, Paul Laverne Walker. You may have heard by now that Dr. Walker passed away this week. It's a great gain for heaven, but a great loss for us. And I could give some very personal memories of my relationship with Dr. Walker. We were never super close friends or anything like that, but he was a mentor in my life, right from the start of my ministry, long before I ever met him. And I've had several encounters with him over the years, and he's been a blessing to me. Matter of fact, I've called him several times since I have been the administrative bishop of the North Central region, knowing that of his history and his roots there. And so he's been an encouragement to me from the earliest days of my ministry. And in those early days, I had never met Dr. Walker, never talked to him, but I don't know what possessed me to do this, but as a young minister back in the early 80s, maybe 1981, I guess it was, maybe even before then, I believe it was even while I was a youth pastor, but I began to subscribe. In my mind, I wanted to find the best ministers that I wanted to be like, that I wanted to learn from. And nobody told me to do this, but it was one of the wisest things that I ever did. And so I began, this was on a youth pastor salary, and then later, even less, on a senior pastor salary at his first church where I was bivocational. But I spent money and ordered from the North Cleveland Church of God and the Mount Perrin Church of God, from their tape ministries. I ordered their tapes, and I got them every week. And then later, a number of years later, I subscribed just to the the Mount Perrin tape ministry, and I whittled it down to one a month, because I had hundreds of tapes. But in those early years, I'd get their tapes every week, and I'd listen to them, and I learned from the pastors of those great churches, especially Dr. Walker. He became a mentor and a standard in my life, and has helped me so much over the years. And that leads me to a point that I want to share. This is my first point that I want to share with you. And I'll send you these notes, but Paul said in Philippians 4:9, "The things which you have learned and received and heard and saw in me do, and the God of peace will be with you." And we know, most of us are familiar, we may not can quote it word for word, but we're familiar with verse 8 of chapter 4 and even verse 7 and 6, "Be anxious for nothing," that passage, "but in everything with prayer and supplication Let your requests be known unto the Lord. And even up above that it says, rejoice in the Lord always. And again I say rejoice. And then, of course, verse 8 talks about our mind. Whatsoever things are true and noble and just and pure and lovely and of good report. If there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. And it's all having to do with guarding your heart, keeping peace. But we don't think about verse 9 that often, about that also contributing peace. And that is, when you have a benchmark, when there's someone that you are following, that you see them. Paul said, the things you have seen in me or you saw in me, do those things. When you have a mentor, when you have someone that you can, am I crazy or not? Am I doing the right thing? How can I know? Well, find you a standard, a canon, using a biblical word, the canon of Scripture. Will find you a canon in best practices being lived out, and learn from those. And that's what Dr. Walker was in my life, and a few others. And I have people like that to this day that I intentionally seek out, and I don't try to be like them, but I try to learn from them. And so here, this is in your notes that I'll send. We all need mentors to show us how to do life in ministry. Be very intentional about who you choose, but choose someone, and choose someone who demonstrates best practices. And I want to encourage you to do that. If you couldn't right now, as you're listening to me, if you can't name a short list, it can't be a long list, but a short list of people that you follow, that you admire, that it's not that you want to be like them, but they are a standard that you can measure yourself by, the best practices in their life, and you say, I would like to be like that. I can't be like them, but I want to take that from their life and I want to apply it into my life. If you can't name that short list, I want to encourage you, starting today, begin to be very intentional about having mentors in your life. There's three, I kind of list it this way. There's three kinds of people that you should intentionally seek out. You should seek out the Barnabases. These are your colleagues. These are your friends. There's one of mine calling me right now, maybe. I guess I should have muted my phone. But you seek out Barnabases that are your colleagues. They're kind of your equals, like Paul and Barnabas, or Paul and Silas. But then you also seek out Timothys, that these are people that you are pouring yourself into. And then, above all, what I'm talking about today is you seek out the Paul in your life, someone that you can look up to, someone that you can admire and follow and learn from. So anyway, we all need mentors in our lives, and I thank God for Paul Laverne Walker. What a huge impact he has had in my life and in so many others. All right, second thing I want to talk about in my title today, large cities are apples and small towns are oranges. Okay, I learned this lesson long ago, and I was reminded of it this week in Tampa. Wow, it is crowded. I've gotten comfortable and used to living in wonderful North and South Dakota and Montana. And we did the math, just like when we get off the airplane in Charlotte to visit our daughter. There are more people in Charlotte Metro than there are in all three of those states. Well, the same is true for Tampa Metro. We're staying in a motel and here kind of near the airport. You never stop all night long. If I get up in the middle of the night, cars are zipping by. You can hear the noise. We get out and we try to travel and go places, and it's incredibly congested. And there's so many people here. And I thought about that when I went to, I think it's called City Life Church, where Pastor Tony Stewart pastors, and he's got a great church there. And so in no way do I mean this in a derogatory way. But when I look at Tampa and 2.6 million people in the greater Tampa area, I can understand why there's a large mega church or two here. And I learned this. I remember years ago I went to a conference. Jack Hayford, another mentor in my life, someone that I have greatly admired and have met on several different occasions, because he became a standard, especially, I guess, a Pentecostal standard. I've tried to find men of excellence in the Pentecostal realm, being that I am Pentecostal. And so I went out there for a conference that he held. And I remember we had to run an errand, and it took us about 30 minutes to drive a mile. The traffic, Orange County, right there within just a few minutes drive of his church, there were over 10 million people. And that's when the light dawned on me. Here I am in little Fort Mill, and I'm feeling bad. He's running 10,000, and I'm looking at their church. It's just ordinary. The people, great excellence and all that, but it was just ordinary. Nothing really way beyond or above what I do. As a matter of fact, there were some things that I was doing that I felt like were probably better practice, to be honest. And I was beating myself up. We were running about that time. We were getting close to running 1,000, and I thought, and I felt bad. I felt like I wasn't doing enough when I go here and he's running 10,000. I wanted to go learn. How did you do that? Well, when I got there, I realized, no wonder. There's 10 million people. It's going to be a lot easier to run 10,000 when you got 10 million people knocking on your back door. And I thought about that again here in Tampa. Now, that's not it. Like I said, that's in no way to denigrate the pastors that are pastoring large churches in large communities, because there are a lot of empty churches of all sizes. There are a lot of empty churches or substandard churches right here in Tampa, right there in Orange County, California, where Jack Hayford's church was, the church on the way. And so there's leadership, wherever it's at, makes the difference. Good leadership makes the difference. But here's the point that I want to share with you, my dear brothers and sisters in the North Central region. When you're in a state like North Dakota that's got about 750,000 people in the entire state, and it's a huge state, and South Dakota got about a little over 800,000, and Montana, the largest of the three states geographically, has about 1.1 million. And so, yet geographically, we are about as big as the original 13 colonies. And so, it's to put the same expectations on ourselves in North Dakota and South Dakota and Montana that maybe a pastor, a sharp leader like the pastors here in this town that have growing, thriving churches, is to set ourselves up for constant failure. It's like being 5'5" and expecting to start in the NBA. It has happened. There was a ball player that played for the Charlotte Hornets back in the day. I think I forget his name, Weber maybe, a little guy that played for a while, but he didn't have a long career. And so cities are apples and towns are oranges. They're not the same. We can learn from these mentors. We can learn from others, and this is no excuse for us to be slothful, or for us to make an excuse to not work hard and to have anointed excellence, but to compare ourselves against people that are in entirely different orchard, entirely different venue, is to set ourselves up always constantly for feeling less than. And if we really believe in the Lord of the harvest, and we really believe that He assigns us to places, then we can be at peace. We can learn from anybody and everybody. Things to do, things not to do. And here's how I worded it. Learn from others, but do not make them the standard for your success. You're not Tony Stewart. You're not Paul Walker. You're not anybody but you. But you can be the best you. And you can learn from everybody. But you apply it through your life and your giftedness and your talents, and you can be at peace. Run in your lane. run to win, but don't run to beat the guy in the other lane. The win is for you to finish having done good and been faithful. Amen? Amen. Which leads me to the third point. And this is the best enchiladas I've ever eaten. Sanj and I, we were talking about it today. We left earlier this is, it's about 1, almost 2 o'clock here in Tampa, which means it's about almost 1 o'clock there in Bismarck, or 12 o'clock there somewhere in South Dakota and Montana. And so we had a late breakfast. We were talking about it. Man, we have batted 1,000. We didn't know where to eat, but we just began to pick out restaurants, and the good Lord has directed us to, I mean, some great restaurants. We had some just wonderful food. We've enjoyed that so much. And so yesterday we went to the zoo here in Tampa. Had a wonderful time walking around in the zoo. And so we landed on Mexican. My wife really likes Mexican. And so the Hispanic population is a lot larger here than it is in the Dakotas. And so we figured, no disrespect to our good Mexican brothers in Bismarck, but we probably can get a little better chance of having some good Mexican food here in Tampa. Sure enough, we hit the mother lode. We went to this restaurant, and these enchiladas were the best I've ever eaten in my life. And I've eaten a lot. That's one of the things I order a lot when I go to a Mexican restaurant is enchiladas. These were the best. And so what I did is I bookmarked yesterday, February the 26th, 2021, February 26th is now designated as the best enchiladas I've ever eaten day. I bookmarked it. Now, there's a reason why. Okay, the best days and the worst days of your life should be bookmarked and never forgotten. They are the landmarks that give your life definition and direction. They're Ebenezer's that say the Lord has kept us up to this point. It was a tough time or it was a great time. And I'm going to always measure everything else that happens by these special moments. And anyway, I won't get into it, but those enchiladas were outstanding. They had deep fried them, I guess. Somehow they were kind of crusty and had some crusty cheese on there, and the meat was good, and there's a unique sauce. It was all done with excellence. The beans and rice were outstanding. The chips were amazing. The chip sauce was amazing. They brought me a little side salad. It was just incredible. Everything was done so with excellence. And I said, I am going to bookmark. I want to remember this. Now you say you're crazy there. Maybe so. But there's some serious things in our life that we can't afford to forget, and we do. That's what would happen to Israel. They would forget where they came from. God was always reminding them. They would forget. If you forget the past, you're destined, they say, to repeat it. And so I want to encourage you to be on the lookout for bookmarking the best and the worst days, moments, events, activities of your life. Now, here's the extra credit I'm going to give you. To bookmark something, there needs to be a book, right? Makes sense? And so I want to encourage you to be a faithful journaler. Journalist, I guess, might be a better word, but one that journals. I journal every day. Okay, of course, there's occasions that I miss. Even then, I usually go back and at least give a short synopsis of the day. And I've included in the notes for this is my journal for, I have a little template, it's very short, that I go through. This is my journal. And you'll see I've got the date, and this is for February the 26th, and I put there February 26th, 2021 is bookmarked the day I ate the best enchiladas in my life at Cantina. I think Cantina is kitchen, so that must be whatever that word is. That might be a person's name. It's their kitchen in Tampa, Florida. And every year when I go back and read my journal, I'll see this, and this will be a good memory. I have other memories that are, I bookmarked the other day, I bookmarked the day that Paul Laverne Walker died. That'll be in my journal. And I'll remember that every year, and I'll take a moment and remember that great man and lessons that he's taught me. And I've written them down over the years, and I've got lessons that he's taught me. And then I have the date there, and you'll see a little footmark, a little footnote that down. I read a sermon every day as a part of my daily devotion, and I start my day reading that sermon and letting God speak to me. I'm a big believer in reading sermons. If we preachers, as much time as we spend in preaching, we really value it very little, I think. And you can tell because we seldom ever read sermons. We seldom ever study other men's sermons. But I want to encourage you, sermons, by the foolishness of preaching, God gets the job done. And so he's probably got a job he needs to get done in our lives. And I know right now I'm reading a guy from 1861, a series of sermons from 1861, a gentleman by the name of Frederick W. Robertson, and sermons preached at Trinity Chapel in Brighton, in England. And he is just, man, he is really messing me up. This particular sermon is on Caiaphas, and where he prophesied that one man would die for the nation. And this guy, Robertson's really putting me on my prayer bones. But I study that, and then I have prayer for my family. And I got a little text box there, and I pray for my family every day. I ask myself the question each morning, am I okay? And I take a moment and just reflect. How am I feeling emotionally, spiritually, mentally? Am I okay? And if not, what's wrong, and why do I feel that way? And it just keeps me on track. And then I have another question: what is the noise in my life, and what is the news in my life? And if you're not intentional, the noise in your life, that's the stuff that doesn't really matter, the stuff that won't matter 100 years from now, or even next year, and most certainly 10 million years from now in eternity. But if we're not careful, the noise in our life. And so I ask myself, what's the noise? And then what's the news? What's important? What do I need to get done today? Who do I need to be? What's the one thing that really matters? And then in the evening or early the next morning, the first thing the next morning, the summary of the day, and I just reflect on the day. You'll notice another little text box there, and I also have a game plan that I go by, and I keep up with all I do during a typical work day, calls that I made, promises that I made. When you make a promise, when you make a commitment, you give people hope. When you keep that commitment, you give them trust. They begin to believe you. And so if I make promises, I like to try to keep them. And I'm human is the best, but I try to have a system that keeps me in place. So I keep up with what I do throughout the day. And then I'll usually cut and paste it over into my journal. And then as the years go by, I can look back and see what I was doing. If there's patterns there, if there's things that I keep repeating that aren't good, it keeps me on track. And then I have, under that summary of the day, I have lessons that I learned. And every day I don't learn some life-shaking lesson, so I don't feel anything there. I don't put anything there. But it's important, again, to bookmark those lessons you learn, because you will forget them. And so when you put them down, then at least once a year you go back and you remember them. And some of them are painful. Oh yeah, I don't want that to happen again. And some of them are exhilarating. Man, I've forgotten about that. I need to pick that lesson back up and run with that some more. And then I have what delighted me today. And one poet put it this way: a day without laughter is not a day worth living. So what delighted me? And it's amazing. I go back and I read, and I have a little text box where you can just go down and just quickly you can see all the things on that particular day that delighted you, and it warms your heart every year when you go back and read those things. And then the last thing: what am I most thankful for today? And a life without thanksgiving, when we stop being thankful, then we start getting self-centered and ungrateful and cynical, and we have this entitlement mindset. But when we go back and look at all the things we're thankful for, it's humbling in a good sense. That keeps us grounded. So anyway, that's my little journal template, and I'll give it into your notes. But anyway, memories of Paul Walker, Find mentors in your life that personify best practices and learn from them. Number 2, large cities are apples and small towns are oranges. Learn from people, but do not make them the standard for your success. Be faithful. Be good where you're at. And then the best enchiladas I've ever eaten is a reminder to bookmark the best days and the worst days, the best events, the best things and the worst things that's happened in your life, so that you will not forget them. It's important because they define your life and they give you definition and landmarks to keep you going. So anyway, there you go. I hope you're all doing well. I love and honor you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for being good and faithful. And I'll look forward to seeing you soon. There's a lot going on in the region, and in the email I have an updated calendar of some of those things. Look forward to seeing you soon. God bless you. Bye-bye.